I got 9 o'clock. How are you doing? It's been a interesting month so far. Busy. Got a couple of great, cool projects going on here at Tradeshowguy Exhibits. And so I'm going to take my headphones off because they're kind of coming through my other ears there, my repeating. So thanks for joining us here today for the Tradeshowguy Exhibits webinar based on the recent book, which I have right here. Tradeshow Success, 14 Proven Steps to Take Your Tradeshow Marketing to the Next Level. At the end of today's webinar, I'm going to assign a couple of copies or 2 or 3 or whatever I can come up with. The people are sticking around to the end, and I'll pick a couple of folks out and send them an email and say, hey, you've won. And then I'll get an address and I'll send them to you. All right. There. How's that sound? I think that sounds great. So what I'm going to do is get back to my screen share and bring up the little presentation I have. I have a series of slides. Basically what I did is there's 14 steps in the book, 14 proven steps. So I have 14 slides. All right. So let me go bring up the screen share again and we'll get right to it. So we want to do desktop 1, start screen share, and it's going to do that weird thing. I'll go over here. Put us on the, before I do that, well, I better do that. Technology. I love technology, especially when it works. That's the really cool thing. So, all right. So if you don't know who Tradeshowguy Exhibits is, it's a full-service trade show company based in Salem, Oregon. We work with great strategic partners to provide the best in trade show booth service, materials and accessories, full design and custom fabrication, installation and dismantle, shipping, and so on. We can handle it all. We're a small company, but we work with great partners who really make our clients look terrific. And we do it at what I feel is a very competitive price. This is my little 30-second pitch here. Because we have a couple things. We have a low overhead, we have a small staff, and we work with great folks that do terrific work, and we have an advantage, I believe. So if you got a trade show project coming up, let me know, and I'm happy to talk to you about it. So first of all, at the end of this show, we'll give you a chance to win a free signed copy of the book Tradeshow Success, 14 Proven Steps to Take Your Trade Show Marketing to the Next Level. And I'll have you also show you some access to how you can get some other special deals that we're doing as well. So let's just jump right in. This is based on the book. The book is available on Amazon for like $20. And if you go to tradeshowsuccessbook.com, you can download a free digital copy. I'm happy to give that away as well. But this is really kind of the short version of the book. If you haven't heard of it, haven't seen it, this is kind of what the whole thing is based on. So step 1, going with or without a map. Really, it's all about planning. Let's say you're going on a road trip by yourself. You're open to taking detours and don't really care where you end up. It doesn't matter. So your planning is really pretty minimal. You can bring enough money for gas and food along with your smartphone, GPS, or maybe a map, and figure, hey, I'll be home in a week or 2 or whatever. No real set plans, and you're fine. You're happy. But let's say you're planning a trip with 6 people, and they all have something they want to do. They all have a say on how it ends up, and they want to make sure that they all stop where they want it. Everyone agrees on those stops. You need to do some serious planning if that's the case. So it's the exact same with trade show marketing. The first step, as outlined in the book, is all about planning. Goal setting is where it begins. What's your main show objective? What's your secondary objective? Who defines those objectives in your company? How well do you currently meet those goals? How do you track them? Knowing that each show has a different target market and a different set of attendees, how do you do that? Make sure you know your target audience. Do all the shows you exhibit at meet that target market? You must know who your main competitors are, and you must know how those main competitors stack up against you in terms of booth size and scope, presence at the show, staffing, pre-show marketing, and market and branding visibility. Even though it's possible for a single person to work on and probably figure out all of these items depending on the scope of your trade show marketing, it'll ultimately be, I believe, more worthwhile if your entire marketing team is in on the discussion. So sit down and go through these items with your whole marketing staff. The end of each step, as outlined in the book, has a series of questions that you can sit down with your team. I think it's a great discussion tool. Step 2 is dollars and pounds and euros. How much do you really need to make this all work? This is kind of the fun part, the budgeting. So you must make sure you have accurate budgeting numbers for your trade show marketing. It's easy to see a lot of money slip through the cracks if you're not paying attention. However, if you consider the average trade show visitor spends over 8 hours over 2 days on the trade show floor at every show they go to, and you consider that these visitors are sharply and targeted to be interested in your products or services, otherwise, why would they be at the show and why would you be there? You have a great chance to influence many of them to become clients. So the money can be very well spent or it can be a waste. Trade shows account for about a third of a company's marketing budget. That's pretty much a nationwide average. So it is a very significant expenditure. But without a thorough and detailed plan, a lot of that money is left on the table or wasted. And during this webinar, we'll look at some of the important areas where you can invest that money to make it worthwhile. So for budgeting purposes, let's start with the most important part, which is the booth. It's really the most extensive and expensive part. Now, if you have a booth already and you don't need to invest in a new booth, your expenses this year are going to be lower than if you're investing in a new booth. Having said that, there are always expenses that go along with your booth, from storage and shipping to making sure your booth is in good repair, has current updated graphics, and even an older booth, without replacing it completely, can be made to look new by updating graphics, changing color schemes and lighting, recovering panels, pedestals, kiosks, adding new design elements, even expanding the size of the space that you set the booth up at the show. Some numbers you want to know about booth budgeting. Know your overall annual trade show budget for all shows, everything. What percentage of your marketing budget goes towards trade shows? Who determines the annual trade show budget? How often does that assessment take place? Is that budget amount known throughout the company or at least in the marketing department? Is the budget for trade shows increasing, decreasing, or staying about the same? And, valid question, is your current budget enough? So when preparing your trade show marketing budget, here are the main items you want to have accurate numbers for. Booth design and construction, space rental, show services, booth personnel for travel, lodging, meals, advertising and marketing, shipping, lead gathering, post-show sales data, and so on and so forth. So make sure you have a well-prepared budget as you move into your trade show marketing. Step 3 is getting ready for the big dance. This step looks at a number of things that fall under the umbrella of pre-show marketing. Main things to understand as you prepare, even if you're familiar with the show, it's not a bad idea to do a refresher on these things. Know your target market, know your goals, which is in step 1. Know what it takes to reach those goals and have a plan to execute that gets you there. Things you might look at for outreach, getting ready for the big dance for promotion. Email list. Do you have an email list? This is great for pre-show outreach because you can break that list down to established clients, new clients, recent prospects, older prospects, potential clients, people that you think have a good reason to show up at the trade show. So you reach out to them, and maybe the messaging is a little bit different for each one of those segments. Another way to reach a number of people, certainly not everyone, is the telephone. Telephone's great because it's the one-on-one touch, and it means the most. This is where you can set appointments. It's more time that takes, out of your day than sending out an email blast or sending out tweets or Facebook posts, but it is undoubtedly more effective at letting people know what you're doing at a show and how much you'd like a client or prospect to be there. Social media, of course, is great because it's usually down to the last few weeks. People are paying attention to the hashtag of the show and making announcements. They're sharing booth numbers and what they're doing. So this is when you send out photos of previous shows or announcements of new products and services, booth numbers, where you'll be, what events you have in the booth, those types of things. If you got a special guest coming in, some sort of celebrity, this is when you can do that. If you have all of this in place, so you've got everything lined up a month or two ahead of the show, this is great because you want to start unfolding that and reeling it out, 2, 3, 4 weeks before the show. So the bottom line is figure out the best ways to communicate with your target market, know what message you want to pass along, and have a structure and organized plan to make sure it is properly executed. Step 4 is, did you come to the right dance? One challenge, and it's really focused more on new exhibitors, but certainly worthwhile to consider even if you're an experienced exhibitor, is make sure you're going to the right trade show. Nothing is worse than spending thousands of dollars for booth rental space and travel and salary for staffers, booth purchase or rental, and finding out that the audience at the show isn't really a good fit for you, or you don't have the ROI that you want. Some big exhibitors that I've worked with have actually pulled out of shows for a short time, 2-3 years, and reassessed why they were going to the show and then refocused because they realized it was good. I've seen that happen. If you're experienced and have been exhibiting for years, you probably have a good idea of which shows are key, which are good, but not great, but still important, and those which may be a bit of a stretch, but still have some potential to reach your target market. Sometimes it makes sense to go to like the smaller third-tier shows, and sometimes it doesn't. So you have to kind of pencil that out and figure out all those things about your audience and the money you spend. So you'd start by making a list of industry and possibly public shows that you might consider attending. If you're unfamiliar with the shows, certainly do some research by calling industry colleagues that attend the show and get their take on it. You can also plan to walk the show ahead of exhibiting. If you're unsure whether it's a good fit or not, say, hey, this show looks good. Let's go check it out. Let's just go walk it. Let's not spend the money on being there other than attending. That way you get a chance to talk to exhibitors and attendees and get their impressions, and that'll help to inform you on whether it's the right show to go to. Beyond that, show organizers, mostly on their websites, have breakdowns of attendees. After all, they want you to come if it's a good fit. So they'll give you information on who's attending the show. You'll often see exhibitor profiles or exhibitor lists there as well. You can see how many competitors are there. If a lot of your competitors are there, it's probably a good show for you because they are in that space. If none are there, you might view it as a rather suspect show for your products or services. No competitors? You think you have the place to yourself? What if the audience doesn't care? So having a lot of competitors there is actually a really good thing. Some of the questions you want to discuss with your team include, what's the potential audience at each show? What's the potential audience for the whole year at all shows? This is kind of at the end of the step. What's your potential lead harvesting at each show or for the whole year? We'll talk more about lead generation later. What do you want to get out of the show? What do you want to get out of the show after that? How many leads would satisfy your goal? So have a target. How many media mentions are you looking for? Have a target. How much social media content are you planning to get? What shows are best for creating content, such as videos, photos, contests, blog posts, and so on and so forth? Which shows are the worst to go to that you should avoid, even though you think, well, there's some competitors there, maybe we should go, but just make a list. Which shows have the biggest potential to land a single or a couple of large clients or customers? There's got to be a couple of those shows. And which shows are the most obviously beneficial to grow your business? Step 5 is home, is where the booth is. Now, your booth has a whole lot of functions that need to be considered. Whether you're renting a small 10-foot inline or having a large custom booth designed and built, there are a number of things that go into the design and function of your booth. Number one is brand. Your brand, or your booth rather, really should convey at a glance the look and feel of your brand. This is done through the use of materials, colors, images. An experienced 3D exhibit designer is really worth their weight in gold because they'll work to understand your brand and your functional needs and put it all together in a 3D creation that works on so many levels. Good 3D designers consider things like height, traffic flow, shipping, setup, dismantling, and more. They take it all in. So brand is one thing. Graphics. Now, most people don't think of trade show graphics as being tasked with a specific function, but really that's exactly what graphics do. Consider that a trade show graphic is a lot like a freeway billboard. A lot of people walk by at a quick pace. You literally have just a couple of seconds to get someone's attention and communicate a message. So, that being the case, you must be very, very clear on your message. The job that message is doing must communicate what your value is in image and text. And so if you have a lot of text on there, people won't read it. If you have just a few words and a great image that's very clear and concise, that's what you need. What you do is give enough information for the attendee to decide if what you are offering is for them or not. And really, that's a pretty big job for just a graphic and a quick couple of words. So that means your graphic messaging should do the following 3 things. Attract attention. That's number 1. Number 2, create intrigue or curiosity. And number 3, qualify or disqualify the visitors very quickly. So that means creating a graphic hierarchy that forces a natural progression of eye contact from higher to lower. Sometimes the company logo should be at the top. Other times you might want to put a bold position statement. up there, or maybe a challenging question at the top. It depends on how well known your product or company is and the target audience, not to mention what your specific goals are for the show. Of course, when it comes to graphics and the hierarchy, no one-size-fits-all approach covers all companies or situations. The main thing to remember is that visitors pass booths very quickly, and they soon become a blur. So how do you stand out? If your message is too generic, it won't attract or reach the right people. You got to be very specific in your statement of claims and must be aimed at your audience so they understand exactly what you're pitching. So if you know your audience in your computer or tech world, you can have a very specific sort of geeky statement, but the audience will know exactly what that is. So booth function. Well, a booth can look great to the casual eye, but if it doesn't have the necessary functions built in, believe me, you won't be happy once the show is underway. You're going, how can I store things? I don't have enough room for this, blah, blah, blah. Typically, the function of a booth must address at minimum the following: storage, meeting areas if needed, product demos, sampling stations, lead generation, lead capture, company information and dissemination if that's critical. Other booth questions that may arise include electronics, electricity, functional needs as mentioned, lead generation system, age of the booth, do you have more than one booth, and so on. Also, when the booth is being discussed, you got to look at logistics, the setup, dismantle. Logistics include getting your booth shipped to the show. Will it arrive at the advanced warehouse so the show services will move it onto the floor at the appropriate time, or do you arrive with the booth in hand, wheel it in, a small little pop-up, and set it up? So one of the things you'll need to consider is how your booth will be set up, and you essentially have two choices because it won't set itself up. Number one, set it up yourself, or number two, hire a crew to set it up. And that depends a lot on the size and complexity of the booth and your willingness to either set up the booth yourself or use your employees. Booths larger than about 10 by 20 will usually be set up by a hired crew or an experienced crew that you have in your company. And in some locales, if you have an island booth, you will not be allowed to set it up yourself. So you've got to have an exhibit-approved contractor that will come in and set it up, or someone from show services will be hired to set it up. Hang on, I'm going to take a quick break and take a dip of coffee here. All right, step 6 is your frontline team up to snuff? Booth personnel, I love booth personnel. They're so interesting. They're the most interesting part of the show. It's true. I would wager having the right staff that are well-trained, energetic, and outgoing is more important than having a great booth. So look at it this way. A great staff will save a poor to moderate-looking booth, but a great booth will not save a poor to moderately trained or engaged staff, because the people that come to the show are not interacting with your booth. They're interacting with the people in your booth. So what are you looking for in a staff member? Well, they should be at the least outgoing, intelligent, approachable, friendly, knowledgeable. Unfortunately, many companies will send whoever is available and convenient and not bother to do at least basic training, which leaves them really ill-prepared for the rigors of dealing with hundreds of visitors in a chaotic environment. Large shows got thousands of booths, tens of thousands of attendees. Even in smaller shows, the basics are still important. So as a staffer, you're asked to engage and qualify or disqualify visitors and gather pertinent information for follow-up later by your sales crew. So what about training of these staffers? Booth staffers who are trained well will know what questions to ask, will know how to engage the right people, and do it all without sending out non-verbal negative messages. I mean, there's a long list of no-nos for booth staffers, and you see them all the time when you walk a trade show floor. People eating, chatting on the phone, they're sitting down, they got their hands in their pockets, their arms crossed. All of these send out negative nonverbal messages that say, hey, I don't really want to talk to you because you're not that important. It's more important that I do what I need to do. So instead, what you do is you sit a bit back from the edge of your booth with your hands free, ask engaging, open-ended questions, and go from there. It sounds easy, but to do it with ease often takes training and practice. I suggest, if you're interested in this topic, look through the Tradeshowguy blog website. You'll find a webinar we did a couple of months ago with Andy Sachs of Spark Presentations, who talked about engaging visitors, and some great information in there. So, what about the knowledge base of your employees? Every employee in the company, I believe, will benefit from knowing the marketing goals for each trade show by knowing the differences between the goals from one show to the next and from having deep knowledge of how the overall marketing plan is being executed. This is what you call buy in. And if an employee has that, they believe in what they're doing and will do their best to help achieve your overall goals. On the other hand, if an employee is kind of kept in the dark and all they know is to show up and schlep the booth around and set it up and hand out flyers and scan badges without really understanding what might come out of it, they really won't have buy-in. They won't be engaged and will likely put much less effort into it. So inform your booth staffers and your employees. That means the company will have a much more satisfactory result. Knowledge-based areas include knowledge of the products, customers, target market, who's in charge of company departments, even the budgeting and scheduling, of course, all that and much, much more. Step 7 is, what do I do with all these people in the booth? Now that you're exhibiting, you'll have a lot of visitors, perhaps hundreds of them during the course of the show, which is what you want. But once they get there, what do you do with them? Of course, you want to engage them, qualify them, gather contact and follow-up information from the leads, grade the leads, and so on and so forth. But what about doing something else? Well, I strongly advocate that you use this unique opportunity that trade shows afford you by doing some counting, doing some metrics. Count the number of visitors, gather information about and from them, and you'll have a leg up on your competition. Now, why is this? Well, if you have a booth staffer, make a count of how many people that visit your booth hour after hour, and you keep that information show after show, you can see what the trends are over the years, and you'll have information that other exhibitors don't have. So you can even create a long or short survey that you can offer visitors. You can learn how many visitors you get year after year, show to show. You can say, oh, this show, I've got 800 people that came by. The show before that, I had 650. So which is more important? Well, it depends, because the 650 might have gotten you 100 leads and the 800 might have gotten you 50 leads. So if you've got to know this information. However, you may find that the 50 leads got you $50,000 of business and the 100 leads got you $10,000 of business. So you've got to know the final numbers, and having these numbers and having people in the booth, what can you do with them? Get as much information about them and from them. It may justify, having all this information may justify your existence as a trade show manager. It may help you decide which shows may no longer be worth attending and which ones you have to really step up your game at. To me, it seems like almost a crime to not take advantage of the opportunity to ask questions when people are there, even short surveys. Find out from your visitors what they think about your products, about the industry, about your booth, even what they don't like about things. It's all good information, and you'll not get a chance like this until the next show. Of course, not every visitor will take the survey, and those that do, though, might get to take home a little extra premium. Maybe you get some premium giveaways for those that do it. I remember at an outdoor retailer a few years ago, I stopped by a booth, and for a 3-minute iPad survey, they gave me a free pair of socks. I went, hey, I'll do that for a free pair of socks, but they got a little information on me, which was good. Kind of a market survey. Now, some exhibitors I know do exit surveys, so they station a staffer at the show exit when the show is finally over, and they ask questions like, what did you think of the show? Did you see X booth? They're asking about their company booth. What did you remember about the booth? So they're doing some digging there as well. You might even try a pre-show questionnaire with people who are standing near the entrance before the show opens. Why are you here? What are you hoping to find? What exhibitors are you looking to go through? Inside the booth, you can have an iPad or tablet for a short self-survey. Some even go as far as hiring an experienced outside agency that can do some qualitative analysis, which looks closely into branding and awareness issues such as brand impressions, visual reach, audience interest, customer journeys, and a whole lot more. All right, moving on to step 8. Tweeting and posting and Instagramming like a king or queen. Social media. Well, whether you're interested or not, or whether you're fully engaged all the time or not, a couple of things to keep in mind. Social media is used by most, if not all, of your competitors. They're reaching their audience this way. You should be too. I assume you are at least a little bit. Many companies still, though, don't use social media properly, and some still are barely out of the starting gate, even at this stage in 2016. So you have an opportunity to position your company against the others. And keeping this in mind, your audience and potential customers are definitely engaged in social media big time. Another thing to remember, there's really no one way to correctly use social media. There are a lot of incorrect ways to use it, but there's a lot of good ways to use it. And no company does it exactly the same. Every company has a different level of knowledge and resources to make it happen. So whatever you do, you'll find competitors who do it better and some who do it not as good as you. Now, I always recommend that if you do nothing else in social media, you set up a social media listening platform to see what people are saying about your products and your competitors' products. Knowing what the chatter is can be very enlightening. The easiest way to do this is to search for social media listening post online, and you'll find a variety of free ways you can go do this. For instance, if you set up some Google Alerts, just search for Google Alerts, you can have emails coming to you on a daily or weekly basis that have any news stories about, or even some social media postings about your competitors. And so you can set those types of things up. What about engagement? Well, I don't want to spend a ton of time going over how business can use social media or should for the business, because books have been written about that. But a few comments about using it in conjunction with events and trade shows. So first of all, I think Twitter is probably the most appropriate platform for short, very active, chaotic events. Certainly, Instagram gets a lot of play these days. But certainly know what the show hashtag is. You can search for it on Twitter, and you can tweet everything out using the show hashtag, so other people attending that will find it. That's where much of the chatter of the show will land. Certainly, some will land on Facebook and Instagram, but Twitter seems to be the current go-to for finding information on the show by searching show hashtags, because it's very current, it's up to date, it's there second by second. And when you post anything on Twitter about your appearance at the show, use the hashtag so that all people following the show on Twitter will be able to see that post, not just the few that follow your account. So that's how you make sure you get that information out there. You can use social media to drive traffic to your booth space, to promote new products, special appearances at your booth, to make connections with fans and audience and colleagues in the industry. So who in your company should do that? Should everybody be doing that? Should one person be doing that? I kind of think one person should be tasked with that, or maybe two, they can kind of trade off depending on what their schedules are. But it usually falls on someone who works for the company that is already adept at it in their personal life. A lot of companies have staffers that handle social media, and sometimes it's outsourced to an agency. But without a doubt, that person should be familiar with the company culture, the products, and the audience. And you can create content such as photos, blog posts, videos, Facebook posts, tweets, videos, and more, and be adept at moving that onto the various social media platforms that are available. And when you see comments on the posts or likes, whatever, make sure that you acknowledge that. That is at least minimal engagement that you should do. And if people have questions, be sure you answer those questions. It shows that you're responsive and you're listening and you're watching. Very, very important stuff. So step 9 is who's keeping track of those damn tweets. This is more about content creation. So let's talk about content creation. This is a little slightly different than step 8, which is having to do with trade show engagement. This is more kind of off-site, but still important to support your trade show marketing effort. So what about content creation? Is it fun or is it just a pain? In my experience, it's both. I enjoy creating it, but there are times when I think, oh man, I've got to get something on my blog and it's been 3 weeks and I just don't have any ideas, or I'm busy doing other stuff and I just haven't gotten to it. For instance, I finally put something on the blog yesterday at Tradeshowguy.blog.com, but it's been like 3 weeks since I've done something prior to that, and mainly because I had a lot of stuff going on. I just couldn't get to it, and I finally got to it. So if you're a blogger like me, you're always thinking about a new piece of content. Well, mostly. Whether it's an article, a video, some sort of post, a clever post, a collection of photographs, or what have you. It's really kind of a never-ending task. It's not a one and done if you're a blogger and you're doing social media. It's always going on. So some questions you'll face. Where will the content be published? How often should you create content? Who is going to create it? And what is that content going to be? Let's talk about video for a second. Video is one type of content that is much easier than it was just a few years ago. It used to be, around the turn of the century, 16 years ago and past. If you're going to do any video for anything, you had to hire a very high-paid video crew to plan and shoot and produce videos. These days on your smartphone and some cheap app or software can get you a decent video product. Maybe not top-notch professional, but certainly acceptable in today's fast-paced world. In fact, sometimes there's a bit of a charm and attraction to something which is not professional. There's certainly place for professional video on your websites and blog, but you can do things from shows which are more shoot from the hip, and those can be very effective as well. One key to consistently creating good content is to always have that idea in the back of your mind. You're looking at things from the perspective of, what about this is worth writing about? What can I share? What is my perspective? What have I learned from this? What's my takeaway? Another thought is that when you're taking a lot of booth and show photos, including visitors, perhaps testimonials, save them so that you can publish those throughout the next several months. Don't just dump them all out all at once. This will give you some content you can stretch out a bit, and even maybe say you've got 100 pictures that you think are worthy of at least considering posting. Well, do a handful now, do some in a couple of weeks, do some a month or two after the show, maybe the following 6 months, and then as the next show comes around, you say, hey, this is what we did last year. So you're still engaging people almost on a year-round basis. Blogging. Now, a blog is, I think, probably the most important part of online real estate that you have, because no one controls that but you. All you can do is pay for the hosting. You control everything on that. You don't have that sort of control with social media. And if you spent time with Facebook and Twitter and Google Plus, other outlets, you know they can and will often change things, which can make it difficult at times, because that thing you thought you could do, you maybe can no longer do. But a blog, hey, that's yours. On it, you can do things like answer questions, you can promote new products, you can help readers solve problems, you can post multimedia videos, photos, you can do podcasting with audio and do it on a blog. A lot of great books out there on corporate or small business blogging, and if you're serious, pick up a book or two and get started. I've got a couple I'd recommend. The main thing to remember about blogging is that it's not about self-promotion, it's about helping other people and solving their problems. These types of blogs get read, while the blogs that are self-congratulatory seldom get read. So do your best to become a valuable resource to the type of client or customer you want to attract. I think writing actually is very, very good as well. The very act of writing for a blog makes you a better writer. During the process, you have to learn things and write it down in an organized, cohesive manner, and if you keep it up, you'll likely be seen as an expert in your field, which will attract even more potential clients. Videos can help show how things work. It can show how to fix things, how to make things, and how your products work. Videos have personality. If you don't already have a YouTube channel, I'd suggest you sign up for one. Start putting videos together and posting links or embedding them on your blog and sharing throughout your other social media platforms. Photos, I think, really are the current currency of social media. Photos get more attention. They get more likes. They get more shares. They tell a story in an instant. So take photos and share them by the boatload. Post pictures from fans and invite them to post or share on your Facebook timeline as well. Other types of content, let's look at some of the short list of types of content that you can create and post. Infographics are good, which can explain data in a friendly, easy to understand way. Memes, look online for a meme generator and test your cleverness, something good for Twitter. Book reviews, has an industry colleague or figure released a book that relates to your business, write a short review on your blog. Readers always want to learn things, so share how-tos and guides, white papers, rants, and opinion pieces. Well-written and thoughtful opinion pieces that focus on an aspect of your industry can get a lot of attention. Lists. People love lists. And they're often the most well-read posts on blogs. Product reviews. Podcasts. Know how to produce and record audio, like to talk, like to interview people, learn how to podcast, learn how to interview, and build a platform. Case studies. Takes a little more effort, but it can be well worth it. Ebooks are kind of a longer form of white papers and case studies, but not as long as a full-length book. Add an ebook can help brand you and your company as someone who knows what they're talking about. That's really how I got started in the whole social media thing before it really kicked in. I think back in 2009, I published an ebook called 101 Rules of Tradeshow Marketing. Just gave it away. Now, you can do a couple things with ebook like that. You can give it away, no strings attached, but make sure all your contact and information is inside of it. Or you can kind of put it behind an opt-in so that people have to give a name and an email address to get access to the book. And I've seen both ways. I think both are valid. Both are good. Just depends on what you want to do. Some people believe that giving everything away is the thing to do because it supports their other business. And other people think that you need to have that contact information. So do some research and do a survey. Share the results. Lots of survey tools online. Humor is good for a blog, but not everyone can do humor well. But if you can, give it a try. Just keep it clean and non-offensive. And finally, promotional content. If done correctly, not a bad thing. Just don't overdo it. I wouldn't do promotional content all the time. The blogs that just talk about nothing but how great they are tend to not get read as much because they're not really solving anybody's problems. So number 10, got a stack of leads. Now what do you do? Well, first understand what a lead is and what it is not. A lead is not putting a fishbowl on your table and inviting people to insert their business card to win an iPad. That's not a lead. It is not having people spin a prize wheel to win something. Lead generation is an activity designed to capture information from qualified buyers. I will repeat that because this is important. Lead generation is an activity designed to capture information from qualified buyers. Period. End. Nothing more, nothing less. So determine if they're qualified buyers by asking questions and engaging them. Once you've determined that they are in fact qualified, gather pertinent information such as what to follow up with, when to follow up, what to send, how to follow up. Make sure you're both agreed upon on that and so on. It's a very typical sales approach. You don't leave the meeting, you don't leave the session until you both know what's coming up next and when. Lead generation ideally begins long before the show, like when you're sending out your initial email blasts to prospect. That's a great way to start your lead generation so that once they get to the show, they've got an expectation of what they'll see there, and you've got at least some expectation that you've communicated a message to them. Whether you're using electronic lead tracking, scanning badges, writing down on paper, or in a notebook the old-fashioned way, make sure you get the few things you need. Get the right contact information, get the proper agreed-upon follow-up, including what, how, and when. And again, I'm going to repeat this next one. Make sure the information gets back to the office and into the hands of the people who are going to do the follow-up. I will repeat that. Make sure the information gets back to the office and into the hands of the people who are going to do the follow-up. Lots of leads don't make it back, and lots of leads are not graded properly. And if they land back in the sales team's office and they find out that they're inaccurately graded, they're going to not think any of them are valid. So one aspect of lead generation for some exhibitors involves the use of a professional presenter, someone you hire to come to the booth who regularly gives presentations or demos of some sort throughout the days of the show. If this is the case, you want to have your team well prepared to handle the frequent onslaught of visitors to your booth and see the demo, and to engage as many as possible at the end of that demo before they vanish. What's the point of hiring a professional presenter if you don't have everything in place and people are prepared to take advantage of all those people that those demos will attract? I know some great professional presenters that draw dozens, if not 100 people every time they do a presentation because they're entertaining, they're informative, people love it, they laugh, they're engaged. That's the time, as soon as the demonstration is over, that you jump in and ask the questions, and you've got to have a lot of people that are able and willing to do that. Bottom line, get yourself a solid lead generation plan in place along with a follow-up system, and then do your best to track the results show by show and year over year to follow trends. Step 11, become the Zen master of stats and records. This step is really short and straightforward. Just keep track of everything. Well, at least as much as you can. So you make notes. You stick them in a file. You keep photos, videos, prices, vendor contracts, booth setup instructions, list of booth staffers, travel costs, and places you stayed. The more you keep, the more access you have to valid information year over year, and the easier it is to determine ROI in a specific show and figure out if you should even continue going to the same shows or looking for new ones. Step 13 is stirring the public relations and media pot. Lots of companies work on their public relations and their media connections, and lots of companies don't but wish they did, and others don't even think of it. They just go to the show and show up. They don't do press releases or anything. So whether you're working with an agency to help set up interviews with media or do it yourself, there is a lot to be gained by taking a very structured and organized approach to media and public relations. First place to start is to have an up-to-date media kit or press kit on your website and direct media to it. It would have current show information, things like that. What else goes into your media kit would vary from company to company, but things like a letter of introduction, company information, product and service information, including a performance review, recent press publications and articles, press releases, maybe some audio and video files of radio and TV interviews. Other things that might be considered, nonprofit and community involvement or awards, photos, white papers, event schedules, statistics relating to your industry and how they relate to your company. What are your company mission, goals, and objectives? Even some downloadable company or product logo art. Put giveaway information on there. If you've got, if you donate, I know for a former client of mine, Kettle Foods would give away chips to nonprofits, Kettle chips. And so they would have information on their website on how to do that. You might even put an order form in your press kit because some potential client may be browsing through your website and they see an order form. They go, oh, this is what I need. So as you engage with media over time, track the results, yet another bit of useful information to keep in your file and share with managers or even let other members of the press know about. Step 13 is, do QR codes still kill kittens, and other tech questions. So in this step, I kind of hold forth on how QR codes can cause laughter, or if used properly, can actually still be an effective way of connecting digitally. Now, the thing about QR codes, you can use them. If the situation is very specific, it can get people to sign up for something. You can direct people to an opt-in page, for instance, by using their smartphone. But if you're going to do that, there's a number of things. They can download maybe PDFs, so you're not printing up a bunch of stuff. So if you're going to do this, here's what you would do to make this work properly. Put the QR code in at eye level, at least 3 by 3 inches and up to maybe 12 by 12 inches, so it's easy to see, easy to scan. Include a call to action such as scan me to win, scan me to opt in, scan me to download. Make sure the landing page is optimized for viewing on a smartphone. So it's not like taking you to a landing page which has got the really small print and they haven't optimized it for looking at a smartphone. Make sure you test everything before the show. I've been to shows where they've been I try to scan QR codes because I'm curious if they work. And I was at a show once where I found 5 or 6 and I scanned them all and only one of them worked properly. Don't assume everyone has a QR reader. Either give directions on how to download an app or offer the URL in another form, such as on a postcard-sized piece of paper. Don't put large graphics or videos on your landing page. Make it simple. Lots of data will slow the delivery time of the page and frustrate the viewer. Confirm that the trade show site has good cell coverage. Sometimes you can't do that. Sometimes you can. And set up your landing page with something like Google Analytics so you can track metrics and analytics. Other technologies include apps around event organizing, lead generation and retrieval, RFID, and others. Check out this step in the book. It's fairly short, but it is aimed at helping keep you aware of technology, and things are always in flux. And that's really what this points to. And finally, step 14 is out of the nest. It's your time to fly. This step is really about figuring out which of these steps in this book or trade show marketing program are the most relevant to you and working on those. And then those which may be less important but still worthy of looking into. In any event, the book is written as a tool to be used to facilitate discussions between you and your management, marketing team, and vendors, and make sure you are getting the most for your money and taking your trade show marketing to the next level, whatever level that may be. So I'm going to let you put anything in the chat box you like. If you've got questions, we'll look at that. I will pick a winner from the people that have attended. I'll just pick a couple at random, maybe 3. We'll see how many people attend. You can win a copy of my new book. But before you go, make sure you get these down as well. The main website for our company is tradeshowguyexhibits.com. We also have a twice a month brief newsletter on trade show deals. What we do is we go through all the vendors we work with who offer great deals, and we share them with you. Maybe there's a banner stand this week. Maybe there's a an island booth next week. Maybe there's a literature stand, something. We cut the price down, and the email comes in. It's easy to get off of. It's just one click unsubscribe. So just go to tradeshowguyexhibits.com/tradeshowguy-deals. Main webinar is tradeshowguyblog.com. If you want to sign up for more webinars, go to tradeshowguywebinars.com or share that with people. There's our 800 number, and there's my email address. You're welcome to reach out to me at any time. I'm happy to talk. So let me undo this screen share here. Let's see. Stop sharing. There we go. And I'm back. All right. So let's see. Let me go over to my chat and see if we've got any questions. I'm happy to answer any questions. And I don't see any. I appreciate you coming in. And I'm going to pick a couple of winners. I've got a handful of folks here. I'm going to pick 2 people. And so I'll email you based on your email addresses here and send you a book. So just get back to me. And by all means, thank you for joining me here on today's webinar, Trade Show Guy Webinars. I'm Tim Patterson. They call me Trade Show Guy, and that's the way it is. Thank you very much for joining me today.